Welcome to Tail Learn Code. Here there will be tales about software development, learning from each other, code to build solutions. And now your host, Chad Green.
But today, I'm blessed to have Michael Yotive on. I'm really looking forward to this because, Michael plays in a different world than I play because Michael's more in the Java world. Of course, anyone who's been following me knows, I'm more in the Microsoft world, and I gotta admit, I need to learn a little bit of Kotlin, but my general philosophy is if I ever have to touch Java again, please, poke my eyes or something, right? And Michael, you've got yourself muted.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no,
trying to block out my background noise.
Oh no. Yeah, and sure enough, everyone, there's a little background noise. Turns out Michael's in a room that's really hot, and so which I completely understand. Like I said, it normally doesn't get picked up as much as you think over the broadcast.
Yeah.
Sure enough, we had our it wasn't our AC went out; it was our thermostat went out, which probably even worse because you can't do anything. Right? And so it got pretty hot in this house, and I was actually streaming, and I had a little fan sitting right here, and no one really heard it, right? So it's
good.
And as I mentioned, I hear it all because I'm here. I got the headphones on, so I hear like everything.
Yeah.
But yeah. So sure enough, I can't stand Java, right? It's now. With it being said, it's because I did Java a long time ago. I know it's gotten a lot better. But I remember that because I was doing it back in the days when there really was no IDE for Java. There were some coming up, right?
Yes.
And they were trying to mimic like what Visual Studio was doing back then.
Yep.
But I was like, everyone was like, oh yeah, use this. So it'll be just like what you're used to using. I'm like,
wait.
Well, you click on something, you wait for the what we call IntelliSense in Visual Studio, the pop-ups. Yep. And you sat there for like 20 seconds, it felt like, waiting for the pop-up to come up. I was like, oh, goodness, please no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did one project. It was about 4 months. And like I said, now, I will say, because this is before .NET, and I loved JSPs.
Oh, Java server pages,
Server pages. Those were awesome, right? Because, coming from the old... what I don't even know what we call them anymore because we've had so many versions of ASP by now. But
ASP.
Well, I think now we're calling that legacy because I now think we have classic ASP.NET, and then we have it. The problem when you have the same word for something's going on for 25 years.
Yeah.
But, so I mean that was in the old ASP, the original ASP, and the way how server pages did the components and everything was just awesome. Now, that's what we got in ASP.NET. But yeah, I had to give Java credit for that one because I really did appreciate that. And that's why I volunteered to do all that development. Hey, let me do all the JSP development. You do the back end, which is so funny because I don't do front end development. I do back end.
Yep.
So quickly, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Michael Yotive, software developer and instructor for Big Nerd Ranch. I've been programming here in Columbus, Ohio for, it's got to be about 15 years now. If not, it's getting really, really close. It's funny, I actually have a very similar background to you. I did Java back in college, but when I got my start, it was all .NET 1.1, doing desktop development. Actually, it was VB6 to C# translation. Then I went over and did database stuff and ETL stuff with SSIS, and then I got into the web world, and I'm like, oh, the web world is so cool. I gotta stick with this. Doing classic ASP, web forms, and then MVC. It was a good time. But then I don't know, like something about where I was at, I just needed a change, and Android was still very young at the time, and I had like 3 different introductions to it. I took a course on it with my consulting company, and I was like, oh, I really don't like this. This is really hard. We were using Eclipse, so I understand where you're coming from with the IDE and everything too. And then I had a project with my brother. It was just like a little side thing we were doing, and I picked it up again. And then it wasn't until I went to a digital agency here in Columbus where I'm like, okay, I get it. Android Studio had come out, you know, an IntelliJ, a JetBrains product based on IntelliJ, made it way nicer to do Android development, and that's when I really am like, okay, I'm going to do Android development from now on. And then of course Kotlin came out, and that just changed our whole world. And so I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now too. So, but Big Nerd Ranch, they give me a lot. We're a consulting company first and foremost, but we're also a publisher, and we go out and we teach courses to our corporate and open enrollment customers. So anybody that can get on a plane and come to Atlanta, we come and teach them iOS development or Android development, Android with Kotlin, and, you know, Swift with iOS, and we even have some web courses out there too. So I get to practice I preach what I practice, so to speak. So.
Have you all moved those instructions online now, or are you still trying to do them in person?
Great question. Yeah. So we did have to make a transition to virtual teaching, and it's been an interesting transition because originally we didn't offer virtual training. We kind of like dabbled in it for a little bit, but yeah, since COVID has come out and since we've had to shut everything down, we've had to make that transition, and it's been interesting. You know, in the classroom setting where we want it to be this fully immersive experience where you're kind of disconnected from the outside world and you're completely focused on what you're doing. It's a workshop, you know, it's a lot of work. Obviously, when you're doing stuff remote, that's kind of harder to do. So we're trying to figure out how we can keep students engaged, and also how I can present to people and make it interesting, you know, and keep them engaged as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting transition.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's interesting. I have not spoken virtually yet. Mostly because I personally have not. Right? I've been too busy with everything else. Well, I should say, I mean, that's not really true because I've been doing Twitch since May. So, but it's different, right? It's not the same thing as doing a presentation. But you know, I gotta admit, I am not looking forward. I mean, I won't be speaking till October as of right now, but I'm not really looking forward to doing virtual. And you know, and here I am running a virtual conference right now. I mean, for you, what have you found is different? I mean, other than the obvious, you're not having direct contact with the people. I mean, have you found anything else really different from it?
Yeah, it's really difficult, depending on the tools you're using, to have those personal conversations with people. You know, I run a meetup here in Columbus. It's a Google developer group, so a GDG group, for Android developers. And the one thing I love about it is to be able to have conversations beforehand or engage with people in the community, just directly, to have those like interpersonal conversations. And you lose that with this remote aspect. So my group, we tried to do a meetup a couple months ago through just Zoom, you know, have everybody in a big room, and we'll do a presentation and see how it works. And it didn't feel right, you know, like we didn't have a lot of discourse, we didn't have a lot of talks, and nobody got to stick around and just socialize afterwards, either before and after. But since then, I got in contact with some groups around the United States, a GDG group in Boston and a GDG group in Toronto, and from that group we were able to figure out what technical solution we needed to have those kind of things in our meetup. And we used a product called Remo. Are you familiar with Remo? Yeah, so Remo allows you to have a basic conference setup, but you can open it up and have little breakout rooms, and they give you kind of like a floor plan where each room has a max of like 7 people. And we held an event, was it this month or was it last month? I'm getting my dates confused. Where we had like 192 folks show up, and it was really nice to like see this layout and then see which people were in each room, and then you could just join a room and have a conversation with some people, you know, instead of having not 190, you know, some people in a big Zoom chat. Like, you could actually have those individual conversations, and that's what I was missing with my local group, is just being able to have a conversation with people. And then when we wanted to do the talks, Remo allows the organizers to just bring everybody onto the main stage area where the speakers and organizers would have a conversation with everybody. And that was really nice.
I'll have to look at that one up. I mean, I would say I run several groups here in Louisville. So I've got the .NET, I've got an Azure, I've got tech leaders, and so I run several different groups here. Yeah, I keep busy.
Busy.
I'm a glutton for punishment. But my wife keeps on saying, "Will you quit volunteering to do all these things?" I'm like, "Well, but I got time, But so I was going to say, especially for the tech leader one's a different meaning, anyways. But like for the Azure and .NET one, we never have been, even when we were in person, we never did much before the session started because pretty much everyone showed up right as it was about time. I always joked as I always put on this on the meetup, it says we start sharply at 7 p.m. Yeah, we never started sharply at 7 p.m. because people are still walking in the doors, right? And I would always tell the speakers who are visiting, I'm like, well, this is Louisville, right? No one shows up, beforehand. Everyone shows up right. You say it's 7 o'clock, they're going to show up at 7:02, right? It's just the way how it is. But we always had after event stuff. Usually, we went to a restaurant and bar, right next door, right? And so I even talk about and it's funny because in my pre-slides I always had a slide that had the logo of the restaurant we go to for me to remember to mention to everyone, hey, we're going to go here, right? So I've left that in there, but I crossed it out and say, yeah, we're going to stay on Zoom. And so we've been doing that. We've been staying on Zoom. And there have been one or two where we were there until 1 o'clock in the morning. And, losing connection again. I've got to get this checked out. There we go. We lost you for a second there.
Okay. I was like, is it me? Is it me? Is it you? That's another thing about remote learning.
I think it's something with Zoom because it's a weird part. I mean, trust me, this is not the first interview I've had where that's happened. And I mean, the weird part is everything shows that I've got a gigabyte internet.
Yeah.
And everything shows I've got good bandwidth coming in and out.
Yeah.
You see that every once in a while. But so I was saying, so we've been staying on Zoom. That's been our social period.
To Tail Learn Code. How was your stream?
Oh, great. We're getting rated by Code Live. That's our friends over at
Progressive. Overrated.
Wow, so have you ever done Twitch?
I have not. The first time I did was for your Code PaLOusa announcement, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. So rating, the whole idea here, and we'll end up rating someone at the end of this, is once your stream is ending, you basically share the love, right? You send your folks over to somewhere else. So welcome everyone from Code Live. So we had 7 people join us from Code Live. Basically, Code Live is Progressive Software. I don't know if you know them. More importantly, it's the Telerik of Progressive Software.
I see.
And they make, in the .NET world, they make all the components that, they make a lot of the components that most of us use for our applications. And actually, they have a pretty good Twitch show. What's cool about them, they because it's a product company, so like different days of the week, they're doing a different product, right? So like I know on Mondays, they do Sitefinity, which is their CMS system. I believe today is a Unity Day, which is the Unity system.
I see.
That. So yeah, they do a lot of interesting stuff.
They must want to hear about all the Android Kotlin things coming out.
So sure enough, for those who just joined us, so we're talking to Michael Yotive, who's a Java / I think more really Kotlin now probably. What I noticed is once people go Kotlin, they don't go back, right? They just. And sure enough, we were talking about meetings going virtual, and we were user groups and such. But I agree with you. It is still hard to keep people social. I know it's funny because I have a user group, especially the .NET user group, is a very vocal group. Ask a lot of questions, right? But everyone's been quiet. In these. Now, and I think some of it is they're shy. Some of it is because we're broadcasting on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I think they're thinking, oh, I don't want to be on. Because it is funny. I noticed the moment I stop Twitch, everyone starts asking more questions. I'm like, guys, come on. You're not that shy in a public group. What's the difference? It's on the internet, right?
Yep.
there's like 8 more people watching, right? You know, it's not that much of a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, so you're up in Columbus. I mean, how has, and we were talking a little bit about this beforehand, but I mean, how has the pandemic been in Columbus, and how has it been treating you, more importantly?
It's been a wild ride. It's hard to even just define where it starts. For me personally, Big Nerd Ranch is a fully remote company, so I've been fully remote for the last 2 years now, and so I've kind of acclimated to this lifestyle of working remote and trying to keep myself productive at the same time too. But with everyone starting to work remote, that's been kind of a challenge. You know, you want to go out, you want to go do, you need some change of atmosphere or something, but you can't. And then, you know, my wife and I, we have to work around each other's schedules and try to not step on each other's toes or anything, or suck up too much of the internet, because we're both on video calls all day. You know, that's been challenging. But Ohio in general, dealing with it feels like we started out doing really, really well. Like we were able to curve everything really good, but we've slowly been going back to old habits, and we're now starting to become be in a very dangerous position. So right now it's back to the way it was. You know, at the very beginning of COVID, you know, we're starting to scale back a little bit. Bars are starting to shut down at 10. We have masks required, and it's just, you know, you got to do what you got to do to ride this thing out. You know, it's hard.
Yeah. So real quick, one, you got a compliment on your beard, a holy Batman beard.
Why, thank you.
And also, Sam, thank you for letting me know about the voice echoing. I've got it here. Let me fix this real quick. Well, I had to. There we go. Now we won't have that echoing anymore. Sure enough, no, it's not on your side. It's on my side, and I had a problem with OBS. It was actually the last interview, and ended up having to recreate the source that comes from Skype, and which brought back in the audio again, so it was coming over twice.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
for the first couple of minutes, we had double audio. You know, which is, you know, it's just the fun part about doing everything online, you know, live. Oh, and we're gonna lose this connection again. See how long this takes to reconnect here. Again, I mean, this is the crazy part. According to my bandwidth, I've more than enough bandwidth. I'm never really sure where this is happening, or if this is some crazy thing with Skype. Here oh, there we go. We've got them back.
We're back.
All right. I will say, if that happens another time, I'm going to. I'm going to disconnect and recall you back, because I find sometimes that solves the problem. Well,
Okay.
We'll see if it happens another time.
Okay.
So, again, and here I'm getting ready for 3 days of this, right? Yeah, but with 12 people at the same time speaking, right? You know, that should be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you were, yeah, I think you were talking about, you know, it's kind of starting getting worse and starting to buckle back down.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So I mean, because we were talking about this beforehand. So I guess in Ohio they're passing legislation to close bars earlier. I know here in Kentucky we actually close bars.
Yeah.
So we close them back.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, it's. I know, like, for example, talking about Code PaLOusa, we're supposed to have a command center at the hotel, and I'm actually getting ready to tell them, yeah, we're not going to do it. You know, it's because we'd all trying to have 15 to 20 people in the same room, even a really big room like we were going to have. Like, no one's going to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the requirements are we have to wear masks, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work very well. You know, it's. let me help a speaker out while I got this mask on, right? So you know, so you could, you know, my words are, you know, mulled and such. So yeah, it's I'm getting ready to tell them that we're not going to do the event there.
I tell you, I was really looking forward to coming down to Louisville. When I was coming out of college, some of the big places for me to go learn more about technology and stay involved with the community was at Code Mash up in Sandusky. So I would go to that every single year, and that was kind of like the biggest one in our area. Plus, Stir Trek, that was like, it was in town. You go see a movie afterwards. So I'd always go meet people at those two conferences. But I would always hear about Code PaLOusa, and I'm like, it's only a 2.5 hour drive to get there. Like, I could do that. Like, that would be fun.
Well, okay. But I don't know what you're driving, but it's more than 2.5 hours.
Depending on how fast you go,
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing triple digits to do that. But hey, Or as the same one who commented on your beard, the Batmobile, right? Yeah.
Yes. Beard's flying back at 100. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 4 to 5 hours, depending on traffic. So it's not that far away.
It's been a while since I've been to Louisville. I always go to Louisville for the Bourbon Trail. I start there, and then I make my way around over to Lexington, and then make my way home. It's such a fun way to get out of town, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's. Of course, now you also know there's also the Urban Bourbon Trail here inside the city. So because sure enough, we do have the best bourbon bars in the world. Imagine that, right? It's. Okay. So I'm supposed to tell you that Sam still loves you.
Oh, Sam Basu. Oh, yeah.
And that's the one who's been making comments about your beard.
Sam and I used to work at Sagetti together, and we used to do presentations back in the day. He would talk about, I think you were talking about mobile stuff back then, and I was talking about Azure, and then we kind of came together and gave some presentations together. So that was always fun. Now he's on to doing bigger things. Yeah,
and sure, he's with Progress / Telerik. I still think I'm as Telerik.
Isn't the tech community really, really small? Like it feels like we all know each other.
Well, and it's even funnier with the evangelists or dev advocates, as you know, because they go from one company to another, right? It's they're quote unquote bitter enemies at one point, but then they go work for the other company. And I know several that are like that, right? They work for like 3 different of the competitors, right? But actually, it's kind of funny because they're all friends. They all get along. It's an interesting world that we live in.
I have some of the longest and closest relationships with people from tech companies all over town, and we all follow each other and stay in touch. It's a good community.
And sure, people ask, why do I do all the speaking and everything? Because I don't do that for a company, right? I do that for technically I do because I run my own little company that just sucks all my money away. But well, it's funny because people asked, oh, you're a consultant now. I'm like, oh no, and but you travel all these events. I'm like, yeah, that's just a very expensive hobby, right? Yeah. But the great part is that you get to hang out with these people, at least a couple times a month. Oh, we're losing. Nope, I thought we were losing. I think maybe you're just hanging on your head for a moment longer.
You looked out. But you had mentioned why you had gotten started in speaking, and I feel the same way. Like I was drawn to Big Nerd Ranch because of their involvement in the community. I learned about how they have their own courses and they go out and they teach people. And then I also learned that they do consulting too. I'm like, wow, this sounds like this sounds like what I was looking for in terms of being able to present and talk to people and be engaged with the community. But then I also do work. I do client work too. So I'm not just learning the foundation. I'm also learning the advanced stuff, and then being able to turn that around and improve our courses a lot. Mm-hmm.
So, well, let's talk about Kotlin, right? Yeah. Especially, your presentation is Kotlin all things, which I was rereading the description today. I'm like, yeah, it really is all things, right? So again, you're talking to more of a .NET community on this channel, but most who probably never even heard of Kotlin or only because they know someone who does like Android development type thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is Kotlin? I mean,
Yeah, let's take a step back to the beginning. So JetBrains wanted a way that they could support all of their legacy systems, their older systems, but all their older systems were still in Java. So they had the choice of either doing something in like Ruby or Clojure, which are all JVM languages, or could they come up with something better? And they decided for many reasons that they would come out with a new language. And so for the last couple years, well, actually, it's been
How was
before,
your stream?
they've been improving on this language, Kotlin, that has 100% interoperability with Java. So it can talk to Java, and Java can talk to Kotlin, but it also has like more modern features of a modern language, right? So it came out, and Android developers were first like, okay, I would really like to use this, but Google doesn't support it yet. And we've had the ability to do Android apps in other languages, but without Google's, blessing, it's always been like, well, what if Google stops supporting that thing, like Ruby or Clojure? Then my app is kind of, out in limbo. But then in 2017, Google formally came out and said, hey, we are supporting this new language, Kotlin, as a first-class language. Our tools we're going to be building with Kotlin, like Room and some of the more arounds. And what Kotlin brings us is this nice language that makes it easier to develop. It gives us things that Java really couldn't. Like it gives us a threading model, like coroutines. It gives us like nullable types, optionals, which you have optionals in .NET. It gives us Lambda expressions, functional types, safe call operators. All these like fun things that Java kind of has, or maybe doesn't have, or maybe you can fill it with some library of some sort. But this is now baked into the language and just there and available for you. So what Kotlin gives us is this modern language that's built with modern practices in mind, which helps us attract young developers. Like a lot of people don't want to learn, the Java world because of the terseness of it, how much ceremony is around doing basic things. With Kotlin, like you don't have to worry about that stuff, and it makes the language a little bit more streamlined and easier to use.
Awesome. Sure enough, I do want to welcome. We got rated again.
Oh no! You keep getting rated.
And sure enough, this is kind of turning into the Columbus Twitch stream. Because we got Sam Masu, who doesn't live in Columbus anymore, but used to, and we just got rated by Matt Groves.
Oh no!
Yeah.
The funny thing about Matt is the last time I opened up Skype was when I was on his podcast. Like I saw his name on there, and I'm like, oh, that was the last time I opened this.
Well, so then the funny thing is, when I friended you today, I saw we have one common friend. Now I know who that is.
Just small community.
So again, everyone, welcome. I wanted Michael to finish his answer, because you were really into your answer. So when I came in, I mean, so much so you didn't even hear it go through. But I was like, so welcome everyone. And actually, it's funny because I was on their stream before I had to stop to come over here. Because sure enough, Matt was working on his Code PaLOusa session. He was working on his presentation.
I should really think about getting on Twitch and working on some Kotlin stuff. That sounds like really like a lot of fun.
I mean, I'm a little biased because I just really been enjoying it, but it is a lot of fun doing it. It's great, because as you're working on things, you got people talking to you. But it all depends on what you think about that, right? There are times where I go on Twitch, I'm like, I really want to get something done.
Yeah.
But then I get really good questions that go off to a completely different area, right? And but I want to do that too, right? So what I've learned is either give myself more time, or do something that I don't, like if you really want to get something done, don't do it on Twitch. That's what Matt Grove just pointed out, right? Or you just have a longer stream, right? It's like last week, I actually was doing actual work on Twitch because it wasn't proprietary or anything. Oh, yeah. And that was a lot of fun because Because then I had I even said, come hang out with me while I write some actual production code, right?
Yeah.
Which of course part of the joke is I barely write any production code. Because, I'm a director now, so that's I'm just supposed to direct the people writing code.
But you still like to code.
I do still like to code, and so every once in a while, it's although I've been with this company for almost a year and a half, and I've yet to have had a line of production code go into production.
Oh no.
Well, that's because I do more prototypes, and because I'm also the architect of the company, so it's I spend more time doing that.
You're influencing. So I think when you're younger, you're learning everything, and then you get to manager, and then you're leveling people up, and then you get to the director level, and then you're leveling up everyone.
Right.
Yeah?
Right. So so that was really cool. So I mean, again, like I was looking at your description today. So
Yeah.
like I said, I knew Kotlin because of mobile, right? Because I mean, my understanding is it's basically taken over Android development. If you're doing Android development, you're doing Kotlin now.
Exactly.
But and sure enough, I mean, I've been to what's Google's big conference? I'm drawing a blank. I/O.
Google I/O. Yep.
I've been to Google last 2 years. Obviously, they didn't do it this year, but the last 2 years I've been there, and I've heard plenty about about Kotlin. So it was very obvious. I wrote down so there's Kotlin for JavaScript, Kotlin native, which I gotta admit the Kotlin native kind of made me a little trigger in my eye, right? It's here you got Google support. I mean, of course, it's not a Google product, but Google's definitely put their power behind it. So it's interesting that they're almost like a React, right? I mean, it seems like is that a good
I think it's a fair mental model of what they're trying to do with it, and that's the point of my talk is, hey, Android really made Kotlin a really, really popular language, but did you know Kotlin also is trying to support other things? So you have Kotlin JS, which is basically like a TypeScript replacement, like you're writing code in Java, or you're writing code in Kotlin, but then it's just transpiling out to JavaScript, and you can see what it's doing, and there's all sorts of features you can use. You can use it with NPM, you can use it with Webpack, all sorts of fun little things you can do with that. But then you could also compile it to a native binary, and that's the Kotlin native. And what that opens up is the possibility of giving my code to an iOS developer and allowing them to use Kotlin on their side. So if I compile my Kotlin code to a native binary or a framework, Kotlin or iOS can then use my code. And that's kind of the world we're trying to get to, where we're sharing code between Android and iOS. We have cross-platform in the sense of like React and Flutter, where you're using another language to generate iOS and Android code. But with Kotlin native and Kotlin, really what we're trying to get to is this Kotlin multi-platform world. We're actually sharing Kotlin code with iOS. Now, there comes with a lot of asterisks around that. Obviously, you're not going to be sharing UI. UI models are just way too different between the two platforms. So let your UI people do the UI in Android, with views, and iOS with view controllers and UI components, right? But if you have things like network layers and network models, or even your whole entire networking stack, like your HTTP client, that is perfectly a good candidate to move to some shareable code and to be able to share those entire layers across platforms, including JavaScript as well. And so ultimately, that's where my talk gets to is, we do Kotlin in the JVM world, what does it look like? Kotlin in the JavaScript world, what does that look like? Kotlin in the native world, and then how does Kotlin multi-platform kind of tie all this stuff together so you can manage it and maintain it? So it was a idea I had back in the day when I heard not a lot of people knew about the Kotlin JS side of it, and Kotlin multi-platform is really, really taking off right now. It's still, the tooling isn't quite there what we need, because it's a really high ramp up, but once you're set, like, you're able to share your code and everything just works. So that was the idea behind my talk.
That's interesting. I mean, sure. I mean, as I mentioned, I really do need to learn a little bit more, actually learn it, not just the overall concepts. I might actually attend your session because, like I say, it sounds like it's, again, someone like myself, a more broader approach to it, get some intro into it. And sure enough, again, as a Microsoft focused person, I tell people you really should learn other things.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a different aspect of your own language, right? I mean, at the beginning we were joking about those Java projects I did and how much pain I felt. But I mean, like I said, I learned about JSP and I learned how ASP could be better. And once we started seeing those features, when ASP.NET came out, I mean, I right away knew how to apply those.
Yeah.
Because I could see what was being done there. So I definitely recommend it on either side, right? It's funny, either side. I like there's a lighter dark side, type thing. But we should learn more. I mean, again, like I said, I've been to the last 2 Google I/Os. Now, it's because I was a guest at Google because I couldn't afford to go there otherwise. But
I paid 1 year to go there, and that was a big chunk.
Well, I tell you, the awesome part about that was, because they paid for everything, right? Yeah. But it is a little bit weird being at Google I/O, which is usually the same time as Microsoft Build. So you're a Microsoft developer at Google I/O while you're also paying attention to what's going on at Build because you want to know those announcements.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed those, but I remember they were like, "Oh, which hotel do you want to stay at?" I'm like, "Well, goodness, I'm glad you're paying for these because they're like $300 a night, And
I was fortunate when I went. I got an Airbnb with some folks, and then we just Ubered everywhere. Like we didn't have to worry about parking and all that because it's kind of stressful to get to the conference. I've never experienced a conference like that where it's like super stressful to get to the conference. But then once you're there, it's a really nice experience and it's really spread out. And
What's the other one? I tell everyone, and again, that's the only Google focused, Java, conference I go to. But I mean, it is definitely a completely different world.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because it's all open, it's all outdoor. I mean, you go inside for the sessions, but you're going in between sessions, in outdoor space. They build these really big decks that you can hang out on. I mean, I would love to have that kind of budget to put a conference on like that. Right. It's amazing what they do.
But can I be honest, like perfectly transparent for a sec? The first year I went was in 2016, and it was the first year they did it outdoors. And this was the first big conference that I had been to. Prior to that, it's been only, Code Mash and Star Trek and, other things like that. So the first year, it being outdoors, the stage, it's like you're in direct sunlight for the main event for 2 hours. I got a really bad sunburn that first day. I was just miserable the rest of the time. I just did not have a good experience that first time. I'm like, this is what big conferences are like? I'm going to stick with Code Mash.
I gotta admit, I didn't get really bad sunburn, but I did get too much sun that first day, because you're out in that sun for hours. And sure, for those who don't know, so the keynotes are in a big amphitheater, right? And it's perfectly timed, but the sunlight is right there in your face, for the whole presentation. It's the way how that timing works on that.
Yep. But the second time I went, it was nicer. I was a part of the GDG program, so we had our own little section underneath the awning, so we didn't get hit by direct sunlight. And then I think they had managed it a lot better the second time I went, where you could actually go and hide from the sun and have a break, because it's such a long conference that you just get overwhelmed with information sometimes. It's hard to just like disconnect for a little bit.
Yep. But no, like I said, I do like. I mean, again, it's definitely a different world, and I like my other conferences I go to. But it's a nice change of pace to do that.
Yeah. If you can afford it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard enough to get the ticket, but then, like I say, it's the hotel cost and all that is just insane.
Yep.
Of course, it's hard if you renting a car is a question, because starting last year, you weren't allowed to drive to the event. They wanted everyone to do Ubers and that type of stuff.
Yep.
Which I almost think caused more of a traffic mess
Yeah.
because the Ubers would just stop, right? Or I'm drop off my people here, and you see the people direct. No, keep on going, keep on. You got to go over here. And the Uber driver's like, no, I'm dropping here because I want to pick up the guy right over there.
And then there's so much construction going on at the same time too, that there's nowhere to go.
Yep.
All that stress, and then finally you can sit down and absorb the contents. And for you were trying to figure out what's going on in the Microsoft world at the same time. But there's so much going on there.
Well, that's why it was. So I was in one of the official hotels, so I had the shuttles. So basically, the shuttle there and back. I was surfing Microsoft News to see what was going on, at Build.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like I said, it was an interesting 2 years. Who know? I mean, number one, who knows what's going to happen next year? Anyways, who knows if I'll be a guest of Google again? But that, like I said, those 2 years were fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kotlin's great and all, but I mean, what are the challenges with Kotlin? I mean, there's got to be challenges with it.
What are the challenges with Kotlin? That's a good question. For me. On an Android developer side, like I get down into the nitty gritty in the Java world a lot, but a lot of Android's build system is built on Gradle, which, when you're an Android developer, you learn enough to make it work, right? But getting it to work can be kind of challenging. So if you're in the Java world, dealing with Gradle can be sometimes a bit interesting. Now, in the Kotlin world, they've made that easier because Gradle is written in a language called Groovy, which is just, it's very hard to find methods and understand what's actually going on. You can actually do your Gradle scripts in Kotlin. There's a Kotlin scripting, Kscript, and you can do that, and it's supposed to give you that more IntelliSense-friendly, DSL-like way of doing it. But it's kind of like, okay, it's language agnostic. You still have to know what's going on with Gradle, under the covers, and that can be a little bit challenging, especially when you're trying to get into the multi-platform world. And that's where I think the tooling is kind of a gotcha. Mm-hmm. It's getting there, and people are working on it. There's a gentleman out of New York, Kevin Galligan, who works for Touch Labs. His company is trying to make it way easier to do Kotlin multi-platform, especially on the iOS side, where everything is managed by Apple. You have to do Xcode and everything too. So I think starting out, that is the biggest hurdle. Mm-hmm. Writing in the language is fine. I think from your perspective, from the .NET world, the language itself is really easy to pick up. There's a couple things with the language that are more idiomatic than others, like lambdas and how those work. When to inline versus not inline a function, things like that are less critical. Mm-hmm. So I think picking up the language is a really easy and a fun thing.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Sure enough, we've got a native app that's written in Kotlin, and actually I don't think it was last week. I think it was the week before. Our Android developer did a session for everybody of how he builds his apps. Right?
Nice.
And it was really because we're really working on trying to do more cross training. Right? We're a small company. Our tech team is only 16 people.
Yeah.
Right. And that includes our testers and business analysts and such. And so I'm really trying to get the developers to have a better understanding of what each other is doing.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like I said, here's the honest truth. Most everything nowadays, not most everything, but a lot of things are C# based, or not C#, but C based, right?
Yeah.
See, there's my bias going to C#, right? But
yeah.
But yeah, most everything. Java's definitely C based, So it's become a lot easier to go from language to language, to at least be able to read it, right? And have a general understanding. I might not know all the framework and all that type of stuff, but it is becoming easier and easier to go in between and at least follow along with what's going on.
Yep, I 100% agree. In fact, I took Big Nerd Ranch's iOS and Swift Essentials course, I think it was last week, because I wanted to be able to be more well-rounded as a mobile developer, and also I wanted to have those conversations where, if I'm doing something in the Android world, I can go to an iOS person and be like, okay, you need to do something similar like this, and it would look like this, just to be able to have those conversations. But the first 2 days of the course were learning Swift as the language, and that wasn't the issue for me. Like, Swift is a really nice language, and it looks like very much like Kotlin, even though I'm pretty sure Kotlin stole a lot of things from it, and it's another C-based language, so it's like you're able to pick up Swift really easy. The problem came to me learning the framework in Xcode. As soon as I jumped into Xcode, my brain went like, what is happening? Why do I need to do this? Why is the IDE coupled with code? It reminded me of like Visual Studio with like controls, like where you're double clicking on controls and they're making events. Why do we have to make an IB outlet or IB action? And if we rename something, all craziness happens,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, sure. No, I mean, again, the whole joke of how much I hate Java. It really wasn't. I hate the language. I have my complaints, but I have my complaints about C# too, right? But it was the all the formality around it, the framework, and and I mean, I used to joke even when I had Java teams. I was like, well, okay, so we need to do tasks. The .NET team is going to take 3 days. Well, the Java team is going to take 5 weeks because they got all that all that formality they have to do, right?
Yep.
I mean, I remember when the SOA was becoming really big, and and sure enough, the architects where I was at, most of them were Java developers, and they're you got to do all this with the WSDL and all this kind of stuff. Like, what do you do in the .NET world? I'm like, import it in. Like, no. How do you consume it and everything? I click a button, right?
Generate all my objects.
Exactly. I don't do anything, right? But are we losing them again? We've been going so long without a problem. Now let's see. Let's see if he comes back. There comes a poor connection. We were going so long without a problem.
There we go. We're back.
Yeah, I'm saying while I lost you, we all the time without a problem. Then we start having a. Of course, someone on the on the chat said he fell asleep sitting up. Rustic 90. I tell you, check out some Marines. Marines learn how to sleep anywhere, right?
Oh yeah.
But no, that's cool. So what would you be your suggestion? I mean, because you've done a lot of different things. I mean, what would be your suggestion for someone who's looking to, who wants to get started with Kotlin? How should they get started?
That's a great question. Well, first, Big Nerd Ranch has a book. We have our book that's out there. It's actually, our book is a little bit stale at the moment. I know we're working on some updates, having an alpha beta release, because our book, when we get to the section about the threading model coroutines, we actually use Android in the book, which, having people learn a language and then jump into Android isn't the best. We're revamping that whole section where we're not dependent on Android, and we actually get into some really cool a really cool technology from JetBrains called KTOR, which is their multi-platform server-side framework plus HTTP client. So everything's all encapsulated into one tool. So keep an eye out for that latest book. I believe there is, let me get the actual name of the website. There's a REPL that you can play around with Kotlin in the browser, and I think it's trykotlinlang.org. Is it coming up? Yeah, trykotlinlang.org, and they've got a lot of really interesting samples from Hello World all the way down to the Kotlin cones, and even the Kotlin in Action book, which is a Manning book. Those are great resources to learn. And then, of course, there's all sorts of people out on YouTube. Big Nerd Ranch also does a 2-day Kotlin Essentials course if you're just wanting to learn the bare minimums for the Kotlin language. It's a really fun course. We do a couple command line apps that we build, and as well as a game, a little text-based game. So keep us in mind if you're looking for that. And plus, we're doing everything virtual now. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So, so we've been talking about technology, but what do you like to do outside of work?
What do I like to do outside of work? Oh, I've got so many hobbies and things. I like to play music. I have a guitar and piano in this room. As much as I can fit in this room, I always need to travel with my guitar and my piano. I like woodworking. I feel like it's very important. When you're sitting around coding all day, it's very important to get up and go do something completely different, just so you can have that refresh. So I like to do a lot of woodworking stuff, just random stuff, build boxes, just use the tool. Sometimes that's all enough, Right. So, yeah, that's what I spend a lot of times doing on my weekends is woodworking or playing music or watching movies and things like that.
Well, so you talked about, needing the which I'm the worst, but I never get away from coding in some form, right? But how do you? Because the hardest part about working from home is separating your time, right? How do you manage that? How do you work on making sure your work hours, your personal time is your personal time?
Yeah. How do I completely disconnect from when I'm working at home? That's such a hard topic. And it was a real struggle for me at the beginning because I was working on a project that involved hardware, right? So the project I was on when I first got started, I couldn't go anywhere because it was all proprietary hardware, and I needed to figure out a way that because I run into that too, where I just work all the time, and if I'm not careful, I get burnt out. So one suggestion is to have a dedicated space, like this is my office now. Before it was in the basement, but this is my office now. And when I'm in this space, I'm working, but when I'm outside the space, I'm not working. Just completely disconnect when you're going, and stick to those habits. Stick to your 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever works for you, but stick to it and make it important. Get enough sleep. Sleep is important. Have a routine. Definitely, keep up your hygiene, keep up your shower. Have a routine. That'll make it easier. What else? I feel like I'm missing some very big important ones. For Slack, I know we're all on Slack these days. Use Slack wisely. Don't respond to it's asynchronous messaging, right? Like it's not chat. You don't have to respond to people. Set those notification snooze buttons. Set it to your time. Like, don't feel like you need to respond to everything right now. I know I have there's a blog post out on the Big Nerd Ranch site where a gentleman named John Daub, who's out in Texas, wrote how we do remote work at Big Nerd Ranch. It's a really, really good read. I can send it to you after this. I'll have to dig it out, but it's a really, really good read, and I highly suggest looking it over.
Funny, on the chat, we got my game space is the same as my coding space, and I feel like the games win too often. So Rustic's got the opposite problem, right? Yeah.
Well, move your game space. Although then you probably won't be coming back into your office. I don't know what to do there. I need to get back into my gaming mode. I haven't gamed in a long time.
Yeah, I don't get much time to game, and I go in spurts, right? But even my spurts, I think I'm in the middle of a spurt right now.
Yeah.
But over the last month, I've maybe played like 8 hours, right? That's my spurt, right? Again, once Code PaLOusa is done, things will go a little bit more normal. But but I gotta admit, I'd sit right here for my games, right? It's
as an organizer, you're going to need to take at least a solid month off after all this is done.
Well, I never do. Oh, we're losing them again. Boy, we had like 20 minutes with no interruptions. Still, we get them. I'm getting ready to kind of wrap this one up here. Let's see if we can get them back. This one's taking a little longer. You heard that little laugh. It was like he was trying to get in. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we are.
There we go.
We did it.
It was funny because in the middle of that, there was like one little brief second where you started to come back in, but not enough really to be even comprehensive. Well, with that, and sure enough, we are coming up on an hour, so let's start wrapping up, especially because Skype is deciding that we probably need to wrap up. But you have any last minute thoughts?
Last minute thoughts. I have so many thoughts. It's what are you looking for? Life in general, just be happy, stay clean, everyone be safe. This COVID time is stressful. Take PTO. That's my advice. Definitely take PTO, because it's easy when you're working from home to not take time off. And I learned that the hard way a couple months ago, where I'm like, I just need to take a couple of days off.
That's actually very good advice. That we pretty much had to force our team to take time off.
Yeah.
Because number one, they're like, where are it's supposed to go? I'm like, I don't really care where you go. You just got to stop working.
Go play video games. Just go play. Go do something else. I had time set up throughout the year that I was going to go to like concerts and things like that, but all those are now gone. So I'm like, I got into the trap where I had worked for a long period of time, and I just started feeling the burnout again. So take time off.
Yeah, I gotta say, I did do a good thing last night. I actually scheduled what is, at least right now, my next vacation. The only problem is it's not till 2022. So
hopefully you're being optimistic, like glass half full, and you're going to take a really awesome vacation somewhere.
Well, yeah. So it's we like cruising a lot, and so 2022 happens to be Carnival Cruise Line's 50th anniversary.
Nice.
And so they're going to do something really neat. They're going to have several of these, but they're going to have what they're calling their celebrations, right? Okay. And so like 6 different ships will do their cruises, but at one point during those cruises, these 6 ships are going to meet together in the ocean and have like a really big party. And hence why I booked it so far in advance. Oh, I'm losing them again. Maybe I saw a movement right in the middle of a conversation. This is the fun part about the internet. And again, for those who haven't, at the beginning, oh, there we go. At least this time we didn't get the poor connection message. Yeah, so I would say, we'll have, so 6 ships will come together and have this big party. So really, that'll be a lot of fun. And it happens to be that we'll be on the ship for my birthday. So, awesome. Actually, that'll be the day we go to their private island, which is a lot of fun because it's a lot of fun because you don't have to spend any money, right? Which
exactly, they're all inclusive.
Yes.
My wife, we went to Alaska for our honeymoon when we got married, and that was a really fun adventure. Just being up in Alaska, and that whole trip up there is really, really pretty.
Yeah. So, yeah, but like I say, it's kind of funny because Carnival, when you go to their site to tell you, oh, you got X number of days, so I'll show them, look, 588 days.
It begins.
For Mr. Yotive.
Sorry, my Google's yelling at me.
You have one reminder. Today at 12:30 p.m.
There we go.
Well, because Google now wants to interrupt. That's
Google's yelling at me.
Yes, it's funny. Siri will just somehow pick up every once in a while, even though I don't mention her name. Yeah. Technology. It's awesome.
It's a part of our lives. Every aspect of it. Oh.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. Having your past hour or so. Really looking forward. Like I said, I really am looking forward to your session. Not sure I'll be attending live just because I'll be monitoring 12 sessions going on at the same time. But I definitely, that's gonna be one I'm watching the video. Because I'm looking forward to that. I think that's gonna be it's gonna be a good talk.
I'll try not to let you down. I'll do extra effort now.
Don't do anything extra for me, that's for sure. Well, awesome. Again, I really do appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.